Thank you very much. Good day to you all. Many people think that politics is a boring thing. I think exactly the opposite. It has faces. That's why I love it. And I love those people who, beyond being my friends and comrades in arms, deal with this. One thinks that when things start to get muddled, and a few straight, honest, tough words would be needed, then one calls Laszlo Kurver. Let's not beat around the bush. One thinks that when too much tactical maneuvering starts to slip the ground of principle out from under our feet, then one calls Zsolt Semjén, who will either preach to us or evangelize us and lead us back to the right path. And when I see that I don't understand certain connections clearly, then I call Balázs Orbán, professor, and he will explain teacher-like how things are in politics. And if I'm in a bad mood, then I call Mate. Mate, how are we doing? And then one's mood gets better. Gergo isn't here now. I usually call Gergo, Gergely Gulias, if I forget something, because he remembers everything. So we have a lot of faces. We are a big party, a strong community, many different people, and this is our real strength. You can see this if you look at our now adopted election list. Dear friends, we are 55 days away from the election, and I think we know everything we need to know for the decision on April 12th. Everything has become simplified, clear, and transparent. The voters have enough time, 55 days, to consider their decision. First of all, we know what we want. I summarized this already in the State of the Nation address. Let 5 million Hungarians work and be able to work. Let there be an average salary of 1 million forints. Let every working young person be able to have their own home. Let us fully implement the tax exemption for mothers, and by the end of the upcoming cycle, we can fully introduce the 14th monthly pension as well. As I have already told you, the old Spice government is evidence, not promise. We will continue what we started, what we undertook, we did it, and this will be the case in the next 4 years as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we also know what the opponent wants. They don't say it, of course, because then they would fail. But we still know. For example, this weekend in Munich, they concluded a secret pact with the Brussels elite. This pact was brought about in Germany and by Germany. Essentially, this is the joint program of TISA and DK. The first is that they will give up Hungary's veto right in Brussels. They will participate in the financial support of Ukraine and support Ukraine's EU membership. This is their program. We also know, ladies and gentlemen, who we are. We are those who are pro-peace, who oppose the war. We will not allow our money to be taken to Ukraine. We will prevent Hungarian young people from being taken to Ukraine. And we are those who guarantee independence and sovereignty for the Hungarian people. In other words, we are the safe choice. We also know who our opponents are. Our opponents are those who cannot say no to Brussels. If I already mentioned Munich, they are the Jawohl Party. Call from Berlin. Answer, short, simple, Jawohl. They are the ones who carry out Brussels' instructions. They are the ones who supported the Migration Pact and would let migrants in and would turn Hungary into an immigrant country because this is what Brussels demands. They are the ones who give the Hungarians money to Ukraine. They are the ones who would let Ukraine into the European Union, and with that, drag us into the war. Think about it. Imagine what Europe would be like today if, around the outbreak of the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine had already been a member of the European Union. We would all be neck-deep, or at least up to our chests, in a war against Russia. And they are the ones who are not masters of themselves. They are the ones whose masters I have to fight with in Brussels every week for Hungary's peace, security, and sovereignty. And they are also the ones who are sent by Shell to attack the utility price reduction and to disconnect Hungary from Russian gas and oil. And they are the ones who are sent by the ECB to take back the bankers' money that we took from them and their like and gave to the people. As you have heard, not long ago, after 2010, we took nearly 15,000 billion forints from the banks, energy companies and multinationals so that we could give it to the Hungarian people as family support, 13th-14th monthly pensions, so that we could give it to Hungarian entrepreneurs so that they could create jobs for Hungarians who want to work. Ladies and gentlemen, we also know who our friends are and who their friends are. Our friends are the members of the International Peace Camp, led by the United States. Their friends are the leaders of the European War Party, led by the German Chancellor, who doesn't even make a secret of it. Over the weekend in Munich, he openly admitted several things. He openly said that in the April election, the German government supports TISA. And they also clearly said that they are doing this because they have agreed with him that after the election, TISA will give up Hungary's veto right, which is indispensable today for complete German domination in Europe. They also said that the war must continue until Russia is exhausted. And this is not far away. But for us, this is hard to understand. We think that Russia's economic reserves significantly exceed those of Ukraine, even with European support, especially since the Americans have pulled out of this. But in Europe, this is the general belief. And I think some people honestly believe this, that the Ukrainians must continue this war because the moment is not far when Russia will be economically exhausted, give up, and it will be possible to negotiate with it under much more favorable conditions than today. Friends, this is an illusion. Nothing supports this theory. Nothing supports this strategy that the Germans and the Europeans, together with them, are pursuing today. It is simply tempting fate. And in politics, tempting fate is an enormous responsibility. I have to say that in 1944-45, our grandfathers were told exactly the same thing. They were told, it's not far now, and Russia will soon be finished. Then in the end, the Soviet flag flew over Berlin, and we were swallowed by the Soviet Union. Since then, Russia has become a nuclear power, while Germany is only now beginning to arm itself. Who believes that the Russians will be exhausted sooner than Ukraine? Dream world, illusion, and irresponsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, 55 days before the election, we also know what our believers are like, what our political community is like. We travel the country, everyone can see that ours are determined, cheerful, and merry, strong and serene. One can see on them the determined will. Meanwhile, their believers stir up revenge and anger. Moreover, they don't just stir it up, but spread and radiate it. They give themselves over to it, unsatisfied ambitions, unlimited thirst for power, rage and anger towards everyone who loves their homeland and is unwilling to hand over the gates and cash registers of Hungary to Brussels, that is, to them. That's why they stoop to gathering known criminals into hordes and inciting them against Fidesz gatherings. It is not the intention of improvement that guides them, but hatred. It is enough to spend a few minutes on the net, and we can see that they set upon anyone who has a different opinion and who does not swear allegiance to them. Ladies and gentlemen, people inflamed in this way can easily be put into the service of big capital shell Erste, even though they would be the first victims of the oil and bank barons who are being commanded there. Let's admit it, it wouldn't be against our interest if they once experienced what it's like when those they elevated to power robbed them. But no matter how instructive it would be, we cannot allow this because the majority of Hungary, the sensible working people, the peaceful families, do not deserve this. In other words, Hungary deserves much more than them. 55 days before the election, we also know why we will win, because we have excellent candidates. We have already introduced the individual ones, and now here are the party list ones too. Here is the full team. Everyone in it is excellent, strong, and effective. At the '64 Olympics, Károly Lakat took the Hungarian football team. He was criticized because he selected Ferenc Ben, saying he can't do anything but score goals. Old Lakat said, "I'm so old-fashioned that I'm satisfied with Bine doing just that." And he became the Olympic top scorer. I will be satisfied with you doing just that. Everyone bring in their mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, we also know how we will win. How we will win. The answer is like this: in a broad alliance. As we say in Fidesz, we go broad. Behind the national governance, over 16 years, a large and comprehensive alliance has formed. On our list here are the pensioners and the young, the workers, the farmers, and the professors. Here are the Roma. Here are the entrepreneurs. Here are the Fidesz members, KDNP members. Here is Lakitelek, the small farmers, the Budapest people, and the villagers. We will have a faction that is capable of representing the entire nation and capable of being a solid backbone, support, and even collaborator of the national government. And finally, I don't want to hide from the public either that beyond suitability, there were also political conditions for someone to get on our list. There were 4 political conditions. The first is that one must say no to the plundering of Hungarians. One must undertake the conflict. Although our leading ideal is the unification of national interests, this cannot lead to the international big capital taking over Hungary. No shell, no Erste. The second precondition was that our representatives will not contribute to the creation of a Brussels empire, because the removal of the veto right can only happen by amending the founding treaties of the Union, which will also require the Hungarian Parliament's approval. Therefore, our representatives had to undertake that, in such a matter, they will never support the Brussels position. They will not contribute to the creation of such an empire. They will defend Hungarian sovereignty. Eburafako ugoksa non koronat. We will not seat the Brussels people on the throne, neither Ursula nor Manfred. The third political condition was that our representatives must say no to Ukraine's EU accession, because the final word, if it even comes before us, on Ukraine's EU accession must be approved by the Hungarian Parliament. Without the Hungarian Parliament's decision, this is not possible. Therefore, we expect, indeed we agreed with the candidate representatives, that if things come to this, that the Hungarian Parliament has to decide on this. In that case, they will say no to Ukraine's EU accession, because the people have already decided this in the Vox 2025. The fourth thing that we set as a political precondition for the representatives is that they must say no to the war. We know that the Europeans have decided that they will go to war between 2026 and 2030. Yes, Europe has decided it is going to war. But Hungary must stay out of this, because in this matter, not the government, but only the Hungarian Parliament is entitled to decide, that is, the representatives. The fourth condition was that those can be on the Fidesz list who in such a situation decide that Hungary must stay out of the war. Ladies and gentlemen, these were the political conditions. There are 55 days left. We haven't been idle until now. None of us has been twiddling our thumbs. But from tomorrow, there is no pardon, no excuse, no stopping. Tomorrow we set off, and we march into the victory on April 12th. Hajrá Magyarország, hajrá magyarok. Dear guests, thank you very much for participating in the ceremonial framework announcement.